Hey everybody, this is Kyle with Samaxium. Here again in part 2 of the series of creating photorealistic 3D floor plans. In this video we're going to be basically starting from scratch from where we left off in the last video. Okay, so we'll go ahead and jump into it. I kind of drafted up a really quick agenda for what we're going to be covering today, where we're going to be starting and how we're going to be progressing through the project until we get to the finished rendering stage with Fstorm. So we're going to start with the floors, and I already kind of started here. I brought some the older floors from the previous floor over into this one because these ones are redundant. So I'll probably be remodeling that one and just kind of modeling in the rest of the floors, and periodically during the video I'm going to be probably fast forwarding certain parts because a lot of them are going to be really redundant. Yeah, in terms of creating the floors and the walls and the windows and stuff like that. But I'll pause here and there to kind of give you guys some tips and tricks, so hopefully the video doesn't turn out to be 2 hours long. Okay, so we'll jump into it. So this is the floor plan that we got. This is the 36th floor. As you can see, it's a Viz block, which who knows what that is. It's probably from AutoCAD, or I think in this case it was FormZ. So we brought in the CAD file, which is just a flat CAD file. There's not really much we can do with that. 2 ways we can generate the floors and the walls, respectively, is by breaking up this, which is basically just like a 3D spline or whatever. Breaking up into lines, joining the vertices, and then extruding from that way. But that's just more tedious than just creating a new line segment. So that's what we're going to do. That's what we're going to start with. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure my floors layer is on. Floors layer is current. I'll go ahead and start their line tool, make sure we have corner and corner turned on, drag type and initial type, and then we're going to turn on our grid and snapping settings. You can get to the snapping settings menu by right clicking on the snaps toggle. This little pops up. Turn that off. Just have endpoints on. By default, I'm pretty sure it's grid points that's turned on. You want to turn those off. Those are useless unless you're snapping to the grid. Okay, so we'll go ahead and we'll start with the corridor here. Because this corridor kind of wraps around here, we'll have to edit this floor. You know what? Let's do that first. Let's see. We'll just continue with this one because this is all one material. I guess that's another thing to keep an eye on in terms of floors and the walls, like where your thresholds are at, where one floor transitions to the next. And with this case, in this plan, there's not very much information to tell us that. You can tell there's a floor transition here, but this is probably a floor I mean, there might be a floor transition into the bathrooms, things like that that are just not called out in this plan because it's such an early stage. There's no finished plan yet in the construction document set or anything like that. That's what the interior designer is currently working on. So we're basically working in tandem with our interior designers contracting us for this project, and basically helping them generate that finishes plan. Okay, so we'll go ahead and edit this floor back in our editable spline. Go ahead and remove maybe this segment. Looks like we're missing a piece there. Huh. You know what I'll probably do is just you know what? I might just go ahead and remodel that. Just restart. So I want to make sure to trace into the doorways so that all of the floors interface with one another. And again, these things might change. The interface between the floors might change in terms of where, you know, if this flooring actually extends through the doorway like this, or if it actually terminates before the doorway and there's something else happening on, you know, within the doorway itself. But again, this is just it's all preliminary in terms of us creating this in tandem with the interior designer as they're designing. Okay, so it looks like we'll go ahead and terminate the floor there, because this is probably just a walkway that goes right into that room. And again, not to bore you guys to death with doing this meticulous, really mundane work. Close spline, yes. So after this floor, I'll go ahead and speed up the video while I fix the rest of the small stuff. Okay. That looks pretty good. You know what we can do is we can add in the floor here, because this seems to be a space that's... So go ahead and do that. And just delete that. Create a new line. Oops. I'm really screwing this up here. This looks like a mechanical closet or something. This. All right. You can even create that one. Of course, autosave got me. It's another thing I could teach you guys while we're at it is how to adjust the autosave settings, because that gets really annoying, especially when you have working with larger files. Alright, cool. So that looks like it's good to go. You have the floor that kind of wraps into this threshold of what it looks like sort of mechanical closets, maybe where the washer dryer is at or something, I don't know. And then that goes into this other mechanical room where there's floor, it looks like there's floor penetrations for pipe or duct. So that floor is done. If we go ahead and put a Uvw Map Modifier on it now, it'll turn the floor into a solid. We're going to go ahead and worry about the materials later on. So at this point, I'll go ahead and speed up the video, and then I'll stop once we get to an area where, I don't know, maybe I can explain something else different about the floors, or we might just pause and then go through the wall creation, and then we'll kind of do a similar thing throughout this video. Alright, talk to you guys in a minute. Alright guys, I'm back. That was fast. Okay, So we have the floor set up, and you're probably wondering why I meticulously traced every line around every corner and everything like that. The beauty about Max is all of these lines are parametric. So whenever we manipulate this floor, we add texture to it, Uvw map or whatever, we can always go back to the original line that we started with, right? And then with that line, we could do things like creating a floor trim and things like that, you know. So that's what we're going to be doing later on, is creating floor trim, and ultimately, it's just a good practice to have everything sort of uniform in your models and as clean as you possibly can. In some cases, we might require or we might be required by the client to deliver the final model, which is something that we'll write in our contract as sort of add service or something. But just keeping everything as clean and precise as we can according to their specifications is key. It's something that they look for a lot in our experience. So that concludes the sort of floors for now. We're going to go ahead and hide those. And then starting the walls. So the walls, I brought over some from the earlier model, but a lot of these we're going to have to delete because they don't line up to the new floor. So we'll go ahead and get rid of these. What we'll probably keep the elevator cores, these guys, because they're still in the same spot, of course, and then we'll keep the perimeter walls. And we'll go ahead and just delete everything else. So we'll just keep these guys because those are not changing. I'll go ahead and remodel that. Keep that. And this guy. How does that line up? No. Okay. And I'll remodel that guy too. So that gives us a pretty solid starting point. And there's a bunch of these little guys in here. And, those are paintings. You know, we'll keep these. And we'll keep these handrails, glass handrails for the patios. These are from the earlier model. Stick those on a new layer. I'll title those wall art. I don't know, something like that for now. Okay, good. So now we'll start tracing out our walls. Let's see, make the wall layer current. And so what we'll do is I'll stick this in wireframe for now. I'll go ahead and model one of the walls segments here, and really the trick is to model these walls in chunks as opposed to modeling each individual wall. So alternatively, we could have modeled this entire floor in, say, like Revit or something like that, ArchiCAD, and it would have been much easier to create the wall geometry. But in terms of rendering, in terms of applying materials and things like that, Revit and ArchiCAD and BIM software tends to really frequently, when you bring that into Max, it tends to bring in all these extra layers and all these extra pieces of geometry that are totally unneeded for visualization in terms of applying materials to things and things like that. So like there's a lot of overlapping faces that you have to get rid of, and there's a bit of a cleanup process going from Revit to 3ds Max, which is something that we could probably go over in a later video or something. But it's, for us, being that these are just separate floors, it's much easier for us to just trace these things out and spend a couple hours of our time rather than having to model it in Revit or ArchiCAD and then bring it over into Max and have to do a bunch of cleanup. So it's just a bunch of extra work. That, and we can be as detailed as we want in Max, which is much more beneficial to us. So that's why we choose to remodel everything, basically. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get rid of these extrudes. We'll start back at the lines, and go ahead and modify these guys. Turn these back on. Modify this. Oh. Oops. At this point, I'll pause the video and go ahead and fast forward until I finish this one wall segment here, this one wall chunk, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at modeling the information in elevation. Okay, we'll jump back into it here. So we have this one wall chunk set up already. We can hide this for now, or get rid of that. No, we don't need that for now. All of the walls are 16 feet high, very tall ceilings. But I have some metal archways. We'll turn these on for right now. Speaking of these, we have to get rid of all of these, but these are good because all the walls are 16 feet high, but the threshold doorways and things like that are at 14 feet. So like just to be as quick as possible, what we'll do, we've put a shell modifier on the line and basically extrude up all the walls. We'll go ahead and put an edit poly modifier on here. Assuming that you guys are familiar with the edit poly modifier, it's very powerful. There's a lot of things we can do in here. This is where we can add a Swift Loop tool, which I might have to pause the video for. It wasn't able to let me. Yeah, see, it does this thing. Why does it do that? Oh. There you go. Add just a little bit of a gap there between the Swift Loop and the top of the wrap there. So basically what we're going to do now is within this edit poly modifier, we're going to turn on our polygon faces. I'm going to select both of those faces, and we're going to go ahead and do a bridge. That's going to make the sort of like soffit wall above the doorway, I guess, the lintel or something. So we'll go ahead and do this again for this doorway, but bridge that. And that should be good for this wall. What we'll go ahead and do is we'll continue on for this wall that's going to be here, and then we'll attach this piece of geometry to this, all of that, and then we'll go ahead and start bridging across here and kind of clean things up a bit. So I'll go ahead and fast forward the video again so we'll get through this. Okay, so now that we have all of these other walls modeled in here adjacent to this one, We'll go ahead and attach this wall and make these all like one unified piece, so we can start to bridge across these gaps and things like that. You can tell that I modeled in the cut for the pocket door that's going to be going in there. It's a really thin pocket door in there. So we're going to want to see that in perspective when we start to model perspective. Just little details like that show up that make the rendering a bit more realistic. So okay, we're going to go ahead and add a second add a poly modifier on here onto this one. We'll just kind of keep continuously adding to that one. And we'll go ahead and attach this one, and that one. Okay. And we'll drag our... And I just copied this wall wrap over here just for reference. We'll go ahead and fix the wall wraps later, but I just want to make sure that we have a decent enough... I'm just kind of eyeballing these things a little bit for now. Oops. Nope, that's not what I want to do. Control Shift E, right? R. Control Shift R. Okay. There you go. Alright. And put this over here. Do another one there, so. Just for, I know this is super quick and dirty, but this is like the fastest way. I gotta change the hotkey. Just a little bit of a reveal above it. Yeah. Cool. That's all that's to it. So now we go ahead and bridge these guys. Bridge. And autosave is added again. Let me see, I'll go ahead and change that. Preferences, files, autosave is backed up every 20 minutes, we'll go 30. Now, that's really dangerous to do, but it's just really annoying me, so. Especially when you work for a lot of hours on something. Speaking of that, we'll go ahead and just do a save. It's good to periodically save. I don't like relying on autosave because, well, no one should rely on autosave. But it's nice to have, just kind of annoying. Okay, so bridge. And for this one, I'm not sure if that's going to bridge accurately, so we'll go ahead and do an extrude. Kind of touch that one there. Not worried about extreme accuracy with this because it's just going to be a top-down visualization. Go ahead and bridge this, clean that up. So effectively now you can still we can go ahead and weld these vertices and things like that, but I don't really care about that for right now. So you can still see the reveal in there for the pocket door, which we'll add in later. And we're going to make sure that the wall wraps leave that reveal out as well when we start adding those. So that's the first door, or the first sort of wall chunk, and I'll go ahead and continue adding in the rest. Alright, hey everybody, we're back. So we finished all the core walls, all the primary walls on this floor, and we finished all the floors as well. So now we're going to continue on to model, and get rid of the rest of these old guys here. Continue on to model the wall veneers, which is something that is in this old model here. Obviously we have to get rid of those because those are old. We might be able to keep a couple of them, like these guys here, and just maybe manipulate them a little bit. These guys might be okay, you can move them around. I don't know. We'll probably just go ahead and scrap all of these and then remodel everything. Really pretty easy process though. We'll go ahead and do one as an example, and then I'll kind of fast forward the video and finish up the rest of them, so it's not extremely boring to watch me do all of this. Okay, so I guess we'll go ahead and start with let's see. That corridor looks decent. I could probably make that work. I don't know. Yeah, you know what, we'll probably just go ahead and redo all of them. So, just, before I do that, let me go ahead and make sure I have these copied, so I later on grab the materials from them. There you go. Okay. So, with the original walls turned on, what I'm going to do is grab all of these faces, the inside here. And then I'm going to, actually, you know what, I might do this one at a time. Copy object. If you want to reset the pivot, you can go to hierarchy, effect pivot only, center to object. A neat little trick. Go ahead and shell this a little bit there. Okay, it's gonna take forever. 2 inches, I don't know. Don't know why that's giving me an error there. That's interesting. Huh. When it displays surface geometry like this, it's typically because the normals aren't calculating correctly, or there's a vertex issue, or it could be a multitude of different things. So this is probably not the most effective way of doing this, unfortunately. But what we could do is just try to extrude. Maybe that'll extrude it. There you go. Go ahead and color this a different color for now, and then we'll worry about mapping it later. These little oak walls. Yeah. Just now as a transition here, this is something I'd like to avoid doing. There we go. So now, what I want to do is okay. So we'll go ahead and jump back into it. Um, we'll start adding some materials to the floor, to the floors. Um, great thing is we have all the floors sort of broken up into their individual pieces where we think their transitions are happening. However, I don't have that information yet from our interior designer. So what we're going to go ahead and do is do like sort of like best guess estimate into what's getting a wood floor, what's getting a concrete floor, what's getting a tile floor, things like that. So that being said, I have a couple materials set up already. But I think what we'll do is we'll go ahead and apply some materials around, apply some Uvw map parameters, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at each material specifically. Okay. So this one is getting the wood floor. That is 42. Now, if you're questioning how I'm doing this, I'm adjusting the material sort of on the fly like this. It's using a Uvw Map Modifier. So, okay, we'll go ahead and do this from scratch. So all of these have a Uvw Map Modifier associated to them. Okay, so we'll do it from this one. All of these, basically how I created the lines was, if you add any modifier to a line, it automatically creates a surface, right? Depending if the line is planar or not, which is sort of irrelevant for this demonstration. But we apply the Uvw Map Modifier, and if we click on the Uvw map, it turns blue, and we're able to, either that or you can do the drop down and highlight the gizmo. What the gizmo will do is allow you to manipulate the actual map. So if we apply the wood material, which I have my material palette open here, we'll go ahead and we can view this from plan view, and we can adjust this. Again, I'm not totally sure what look the client is going for yet, but I'll go ahead and just kind of get these textures lined up as best we can for right now. Another way we can do this is by deleting all of the, so let's do this, add poly. Just so I can show you guys what we're doing here. The rest of them I'll just kind of do globally. So let's say if we want all the, we'll do this one too. Want all of these floors to have exactly the same sort of gradient going across. We want the map to be the same all the way. So we can go ahead and apply our wood material, which is already applied. And we're going to apply a global Uvw map to each one of these selected surfaces. So now you can tell the Uvw mapping is affecting all of the surfaces at the same time, which is really convenient. So now we can kind of adjust this. Again, not totally sure what kind of grain variation the client's looking for, if it's supposed to be really thin, but we'll go on ahead and maybe just keep it, that looks, I'm not sure the scale we're looking at here. It's probably looking okay. I would say you've got me. Okay. That's looking pretty good for now. We're just trying to match the scale as best as we could, or get a good looking scale at least. Let's stretch this out a little bit. There we go. Yeah. Okay. We'll leave it there for right now and get the client's feedback later once we produce the preliminary renderings. Okay, so I'll go ahead and apply mapping to all of these guys too. I know the bathrooms are a different material. Alright. global Uvw Map Modifier on all of these guys. Go ahead and shrink that down a bit. Kind of match it up as best we can with that. Again, this is all really pretty quick and dirty kind of stuff. Once we start getting into adding more and more detail to this per client specification, we will be a bit more meticulous with how we add our UVW mapping and stuff like that. Especially when we start doing like really highly photorealistic perspective renderings and stuff like that. But for these 3D plans, it's kind of it's pretty simple. You know, it's just keep things as clean and simple as possible, and typically yields the best result. So these guys will just be, I think, a concrete. Yeah. See if I save that. Good concrete. And ooh. Yeah, that's probably good. It's a really big concrete map texture. So you won't see much of the grain, it kind of just shows up that way. Or sorry, the actual texture of the concrete, but let's see, we can probably get these guys mapped up here. I kind of stopped. Did I lose one? Oh, where is it? Okay. Let's see, oak walls. I kind of stopped adding these wood veneer walls on top of the other walls, just because I don't have all the information from our client yet for what he wants. But I can go ahead and probably continue adding just at least the top surface, so we can change it quickly later. But for now, we'll just kind of like approximate it, and just for visual representation for this tutorial. And that looks about good. That's nice. Let's see. I'll pull up an image, a couple images from the client that basically he used to describe the intent for the wood veneer walls. So let me see.
So here are some example images of the intent that our interior designers.
So we'll jump back into it now. We're going to go ahead and sort of globally apply this white drywall material to all the walls. So turn out these walls, turn out the floors, this guy, and
sort of seamless wood, sort of like veneer.
white drywall.
for the
Yes.
wood paneling and the flooring. So it's really pristine wood that really reflects light really well. So we want to capture all of that quality, the lighting, and of course the material texture itself. So here's just a couple of example images.
Okay. That's good enough. Really big. That should be okay. Something like that. Okay, so you're not going to see this material. That's just the material representing the bump map, and it's supposed to be like that. That's pretty good. Let's see, that should show up like that. Yep. So these walls are sort of a metal, like a rough black metal. And so are the doorway arches, which is what we're going to have to work on next. So next up, before we jump into the windows or anything else, we're going to have to fix the doorway arches and the window wraps. Some of those have changed as well. So go ahead and turn those on. So now we're going to have to get rid of all of the ones inside the building. Leave a couple for us to copy around. These are super easy to create. I copied these down here to represent the base of the... Yeah, just like it was kind of an afterthought. My client, they wanted to show the metal wrapping around and put it, like on the actual floor to wrap that around. So rather than modifying each one of these, we just grabbed them all and copied them down. So that worked pretty well. So let's turn the walls back on. These ones are lined up pretty good. And all of these are just like a really simple box. And then we extruded the sides out and then extrude them down. Really easy. Add a Uvw Map Modifier. Done. So now you can see those in a different color, which is good. So these are for the soffit door, or not the soffit, sorry, the it's floating all the way out there. Pocket doors. So like this guy right here. Just make sure that it's facing the right way. Yep, it is. Just really easily. It's a really small door. So that's kind of how that works. So now, if in the event you were standing outside this hallway, you'd be able to see the pocket inside within the wall, and the gap left out for for the archway wrap. And then there's the reveal, slight reveal against the wall, so you can kind of cast some occluded shadow behind it, which turns out really nicely. Cover this one down here. And yes, in the 3D plan, we kind of see all this stuff, so we'll have to, unfortunately, add every little piece like this. But it's really not that bad, because there's not that much detail. Not yet, at least. Okay, so this one needs to be updated, it looks like. Okay, so we're going to jump into modeling some of the furniture now. Just briefly, I think we're just going to touch on the furniture for now because I don't have all the necessary information to really get into detail with it. We've been sort of just blocking out things anyway for the furniture, but we've put some detail into some of the casework and things like that for the previous floor. So I'll go ahead and copy around some of that stuff in terms of the kitchen and stuff like that. So there is a small kitchen on this floor and things like that. So we'll go ahead and put that in. Okay, so this is the furniture. Alright, so we'll just deal with the casework for right now. And it looks like we're going to have to make another one of these guys here. So I'll go ahead and do that. So modeling some really simple shelving. So it's like a pantry. And we'll do a shell. Obviously not that big, probably maybe like an inch or something. Turn the walls on. Is an instance, so that's kind of cool. So you know what? Maybe we'll just make that. Maybe make that 2 inches. Yeah, there we go. That seems like it'll be okay. We'll go ahead and so I have to delete a lot of this stuff. Group that. Just name that pantry shelves. Okay. Now a lot of this other casework. We'll probably get rid of a lot of this other casework and stuff. Oops. That'll just be kind of temporary for right now. Gotta add some beds in. Sorry about that. Have to add some beds and looks like we have to add some bathtubs and showers and things like that. That stuff we'll probably get to later on. However, I do have a few models I could toss in there just for now. Let's go ahead and hide the furniture for now. Kitchen. Casework. All of this is basically like fixtures and furniture. Yeah, you know what we can do is we can just add this to the casework. That's fine. Okay. Good. Yeah, let's go ahead and add some bathtubs and some beds. I have some decent looking beds that we used. The last one. Yeah, these are good enough. There it is. That got kind of squished, huh? That's weird. Okay, so I have a bed imported into the main model right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to optimize it, and then we're going to create an Fstorm proxy with it, I think. Because being that there's a lot of beds that are going to be copied around in this scene, we're going to want to make sure we make this as easy for Fstorm to render as possible. So go ahead and optimize it using the Optimize modifier. So that reduces overall polys on it as much as it can. Unfortunately, it does screw with the Uvw mapping of it. So we're gonna just. This is not how we would normally do this, but for this case, being that it's a 3D plan, we don't really want to concern ourselves with extreme detail. So that looks pretty decent for now. What we could do is do the rest of these guys. Optimize these. That looks kind of terrible. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, those are pretty optimal. Yeah, that's fine. We'll just keep them like that. Bed. That's pretty good. So that's good. When we start getting in here to do perspectives, we'll definitely replace all of these pieces with with much more photorealistic versions and much more detailed versions. But for the 3D plan, I think this will turn out pretty nicely. Okay, so what we'll do is within Fstorm, what we could probably do is Fstorm proxy exporter. And then we'll go ahead and choose a location to save this. In the root where we're saving everything. It's bed. Save it there. Preview points 1,000. Replace with proxy. Sure. There we go. Perfect. So that's pretty decent. Hopefully that'll work. What we can probably do is do a quick save, and we'll pop on Fstorm just right now just to do a quick test. Turn my cameras on and stuff. There we go. There we go. So that's showing up nicely. Just I think it's just the texture is just a white texture. I mean, you should just go ahead and see if we can zoom in on this a little bit more. Just white sheets. There's a bit of a texture to it, but it's really subdued. So that's good enough. Okay. Just wanted to do a quick test to make sure the proxy is showing up right. So now, we can copy these around as an instance in our scene. And it'll take much less time for Fstorm to process that. Okay, now we'll go ahead and model a couple of these side tables. Again, not totally sure what the client has intended for these, but we'll go ahead and just model in something quick. So we'll create a line. Actually, you know what? We could just create this as a standard box. That chamfer standard, like something like that. I don't know. You have a bunch of segments. Keep it as low poly as we can. There we go. Not sure what they had intended for this, but for now we'll just kind of keep it maybe just as a floating plane, or you know what we can do? It's a little thinner. I don't know. Maybe we could just inset this, give it a base. Hit the floor. That's good enough for now, until we get more information. We can kind of just color that something really generic. Maybe the white drywall color. Okay. So before we copy that stuff around, we can probably find like a really simple lamp. Now let's go ahead and find something on 3D Sky or something. 3D Sky lamp. Okay, so I went ahead and downloaded this rather ugly looking desk lamp, just to get just a tiny bit more detail in the scene, just to get the conversation started with our client for what to actually put in here. Sometimes it takes just a little bit of detail for them to sort of visualize what the amount of detail we'd like to put in the scene. So okay, well what I'm gonna have to do here is I just downloaded this model. I mean, if you're just using a generic model, I just want to show you guys real quick how you can convert the materials from, like, say, for instance, this is a V-Ray scene. So we'll go ahead and switch this to Fstorm. This is just in the native file. So now you can see all of the materials are blacked out. So if we scroll down in the Fstorm settings, all the way down at the bottom, there's a tools section, and we can do a scene conversion to Fstorm. So what that'll do is that'll transfer all of the materials to Fstorm materials. We're going to have to relink some of the texture maps though. For instance, this silk. Let's see, it's probably a bump. Here we go. There you go. That's fine. Curious just to see what this does. Let's just render the scene real quick. Quick test. Let's put in a Fstorm light source real quickly. Just to see what this thing is looking like. In our Fstorm palette toolbar, we will change the environment to a white or something, and then check it out. Yeah. I can live with that. It's good for right now. Pretty easy. We'll go ahead and get this ported to our scene. Lamp. That's okay. Instance. So grab these guys. Group that. Make sure this is on the furniture layer. Okay. Yeah, it's okay for now. Looks like we're going to need a little bit of casework there. Just like the shelves that we did here. Those on the casework layer. Shell that 2 inches is fine. I'm not sure what this is. Huh. That's interesting. I guess that's nothing. We'll put one over here, though. Cool. Assuming those are some kind of shelving. I don't know. Something like that. Cool. So we can make some kind of bookshelves. I'm not exactly sure. We're still waiting on elevation information for this part right here. I'm assuming it's probably going to be some kind of book, some kind of shelving, something like that. So we'll go ahead and just model this out really quick, so you can still see through that column chase right there, or that leave out in the wall. Probably some kind of vertical chase. So we'll go ahead and model around that. good. Good enough. Shallow that 2 inches, good. And then we'll go ahead and maybe just copy that. Yeah, that's good for now. Okay. Okay, so I just imported a generic model of a sort of like a bathtub. Check it out. Not too shabby. We'll go ahead and do the same process we did with the bed, and we'll create a proxy object from it. I just want to make sure that won't mess it up. So let's do a test here. Go to Fstorm proxy exporter, and we will put it there. Just give it like, yeah, 1000's fine. Replace the proxy, and then, yeah, that's good enough. Cool. So now, we should see, go ahead and save this real quick. Yeah, it's good enough. Obviously it's really blown out because of the light, but yeah, that'll work. Alright, cool. So we get rid of the old one, let's use the proxy. Okay. That here. Oops. Good enough. There's only a couple of those. Okay. That's interesting. Oops. To do that. Got to put the lamps on the tables. Boy. Okay, so the last step, which we'll need to do, is create the 3D or the ceilings for the 3D plan. So right now we have a couple different ceilings in here we got to get rid of. So these ceilings are from the old plan, but what we'll do, it's pretty easy to create the ceilings. We will go ahead and copy up the floors. I'm not sure what that is. Turn the walls on. Copy up the floors. Get them as high as we can, but we want to leave just a little bit of a gap between the top and... That's good enough. So now what we'll do So we'll make all of this one generic material. Or you know what, we'll do the white drywall. Group all these ceilings. Put a Uvw Map Modifier on there, and that's probably pretty good. That doesn't really do much, but just makes some of the reflections and stuff like that happen. It just gives a little bit more depth to the image. Go ahead and right click and we'll do object properties, and this is where it's sort of like a camera trick. Basically, what we want to have happen is we want to have the light. We want to be able to see through the ceilings, but we want to have basically the interior. So effectively, it'll the 3D plan will be lit by the interior lights, which we'll get to next. And the sun will be able to cast in through the windows, and it'll look kind of like natural, kind of just like you took the lid off of the top, but without actually having the sunlight cook all of the spaces, sort of in its totality. We don't want all of this hard shadows everywhere. So if we go to object properties and we go invisible to camera, it can receive shadows, it can cast shadows, that's what we want. Backface color we can leave off for now. So what we have to do is we have to flip the normals. Actually, you know what? We can do backface call. And then we'll go ahead and flip the normals. So now we can see through the ceilings from the top. If you look down below, you can still see the ceilings. So that'll basically just trap the interior light inside, and the sun will come in from the sides and enter in through the windows, but it won't be directly above, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's looking pretty okay for right now. So let's toss in some lights, and then we will start to do some test renders. So I'm going to place in some lights and kind of explain what we're going through, the process that we go through, and then I'll, of course, speed up the video again and kind of just buzz through it. Okay, let's do this. Actually, before I do that, put all these ceilings there. Good. These are all the old lights. Actually, you know what? I could probably go ahead and keep a lot of these lights and just modify them. What we're basically doing here is we're kind of faking in the light to a certain extent. We want to basically spread the light out as evenly as possible without getting any hot spots, to where we'll have the best sort of coverage of all the spaces. Okay, so that should give us some pretty good light coverage. Okay, let me see if I can just grab some of these guys here. Yeah, that's good enough. It should give us some pretty good light coverage, especially when we have the sun coming in through the windows. So we'll go ahead now and start to do some test renders. So go ahead and save this. And before I forget, I gotta change this to be the concrete real quick. That's good enough. Oops, camera. That's fine. Okay. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and turn everything on that we've done so far. Metal doors, take those off. Still have quite a bit to do. Still have to add in the doors, things like that. But this should be good enough for us to do some test renders with. Just make sure we have everything. Yeah, looking good. So a lot of touch-ups to do on the vanities, a lot of we have a few more walls left we have to do. It looks like there's some wall options that should be on. There you go. Walls, one's good. Still have to add in a lot of these wall veneers, but that's all stuff that we can take care of later on, especially when we get more information and continue on the sort of design process with this client and adding in more detail in this model. So what we'll do is go ahead and I can go ahead and delete that probably. Let's try to run Fstorm and try to get some test renders off this thing. Alright, that's looking pretty bright, but we can work with that. Let me see. What we can do is we can turn down the sun a little. Oh, the sun's not really affecting. We start turning down the lights, or we can. Okay, so I figured out the issue with the black ceiling that was happening here. There was just a hidden ceiling that was from the old model that I forgot to delete. So okay, so this is looking pretty good so far in terms of giving us a pretty good base to start with. So we can probably take a look at some different LUT files. So Fstorm has a lot of really good LUT files that we can try. The Lut's armchairs, which we were using before, and we can kind of scroll through here and see which ones kind of work better for us. A lot of these are really kind of play with the exposure settings and stuff like that, and that one looks pretty nice. So what we want to have is like a really just sort of even keeled, not too much saturation or anything like that, but these sort of adjust the camera settings to where before we take it into post-processing, we can kind of see what some of these are going to look like. A lot of these are really overexposed though. You can play a little bit with the strength though of it. Bit overexposed, but not terrible. kind of like that Cine style. We'll stick with that for now. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and maybe just pause. Keep this running. Hide the ceilings. I'm just going to turn these lights down, probably like to 10. There we go. Send those up to 22. It's looking pretty nice. Let's do a 24. This back corner room back here, and it's starting to get there. Back down to 20. Right. Got a lot brighter. What's going on here? Seems to have a mind of its own. So, bring these back down to 20. This back down to 22. It's odd. So the goal really is to sort of make the light as even as possible, but also like you kind of want to tell where some of the corridors are and things like that. You want to have like slight variations in the sort of light quality throughout the spaces. Oh, I understand what's wrong now. We turn the ceilings off. Oops. Okay, so that's starting to look pretty good. 12 on those. Cool. Alright everyone, so I think the 3D plan is looking pretty good for right now. I think we'll probably manipulate some of these lights a little bit and get the overall image a little bit more even keel. There's a lot of hot spots going on right now. But otherwise it's looking pretty nice, and Fstorm's kind of cruising away at this. It's a 2K image. It's 35% noise free, and it's been running for about 20 minutes, but I only have my 980 Ti graphics card right now. That's just the only thing that I have working on this. Within the next couple of weeks, I should have a few 1080 Ti's in here, so that's definitely going to up my performance significantly. Be able to render these things a lot faster. With any real-time rendering engine like Fstorm, the more graphics cards you have, or just basically the higher CUDA cores you have, the faster you can process renderings. So I think what we'll do is we'll conclude this tutorial right here where we're at now, and then as we progress forward with the design with the client, we'll sort of add different parts of this video series as we kind of get further and further into photorealism, and we'll start setting up perspective images, and we'll bring on we'll start to develop the process a little bit more in terms of modeling furniture and things like that. So there's going to be a lot of custom furniture in this project, a lot of custom finishes, and so look forward to creating some more videos and showing you a bit more of this process. But I hope you found it enjoyable or interesting, or maybe you learned a few tips and tricks here and there. Okay, thank you so much for watching.